is reacted with a metal, the common product what we got is hydrogen gas, right? So how do we check this hydrogen gas? We just brought an candle which is burning to the mouth of an test tube. When it gives a popping sound, that confirms the experiment, it releases an hydrogen gas. Now we'll see what happens when acid is reacted with metal carbonate and metal hydrogen carbonate. Whenever the acid is reacted with metal carbonate or metal hydrogen carbonate, the product remains the same. It forms the salt, water along with the liberation of an carbon dioxide. Whenever the sodium carbonate is reacted with an HCl, it forms NaCl, water along with the liberation of an carbon dioxide. The similar way, when the sodium hydrogen carbonate is also reacted with an acid, even that also forms the NaCl, water and carbon dioxide. In both the cases, the common product is carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide which is formed, when I pass this carbon dioxide into an lime water, the lime water turns into milky white. That confirms the experiment, there is a liberation of an carbon dioxide. You may have one question, why only the acid is reacting with sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, why not the base? You are supposed to note that the base will not react with the sodium carbonate and sodium hydrogen carbonate. Now let us see what happens when acid and the base reacts with each other, right? Whenever the acid as well as the base reacts with each other, they get neutralized. Can I give an example? Whenever one of your family member feeling acidity, they takes an ENO, right? So whenever they feeling an acidity, the base called as an ENO, when we consume that get neutralized and it forms a salt along with the liberation of an water. The same thing, whenever the acid is reacted with a base, it forms salt along with the liberation of water. Guys, keep this in mind, whenever the acid is reacted with a base, it forms a salt along with the liberation of some amount of an water. The same thing happens when acid is reacted with a metal oxide, like copper. When it is reacted with a copper oxide, when it is reacted with an HCl, it forms a copper chloride along with the formation of some amount of water. Being the copper oxide or the metal oxide basic in nature, the acid and basic in nature, what is that? Metal oxide. Metal oxide is basic in nature, so acid and the base combined, it forms a salt along with the formation of an water. Now let's see what happens when non-metallic oxide reacts with an base. Keep this in mind, non-metallic oxide is acidic in nature. Already I told you that when acid and the base reacts, it forms a salt, right? So non-metallic oxide is an acidic. When it is reacted with a base, it forms a salt along with the formation of some amount of water. Let me give an example. When calcium hydroxide is reacted with a carbon dioxide, it forms calcium carbonate and along with the formation of some amount of water. After seeing so many things, we are supposed to know what is the common between acid and the base. Acid and the base both will conduct an electricity. Yes, they both conduct an electricity. Let me tell you how. Whenever the acid is dissolved in water, it produces more amount of hydronium ions that leads to the production of electricity. The same way, whenever the base is added into the water, even that also produces an electricity. Let's see process of dilution. Whenever we add acid or base to the water, it leads to an exothermic reaction. As we know that exothermic reaction is nothing but liberation of enormous amount of energy from a body. The same thing happens whenever the acid or the base is added into the water, right? So there is some precautions to add acid or the base into the water. We never should add acid to the water. We always should add water to the acid. Then only it forms a proper solutions. Can you tell me how strong you are? Can you? I don't know how we are showing, but let me show you how the strong is acid as well as the base, right? If the hydrogen ion is more in any solution, that much the acid is stronger. Whenever the OH minus ions is more in any solution, that much the strength of any base. The strength of an acid is determined by a pH scale. You're supposed to know what is pH. pH is nothing but negative logarithm of an hydrogen ions, right? This pH scale consists of an values from 0 to 14. In that, 0 to 7 is an acidic in nature and 7 to 14 is an base, and 7 is nothing but neutral. So whenever we have a solution to determine whether it is an acid or the base, suppose if we want to check that, let me take a drop of that and let me add it on the pH scale. Suppose if shows the value less than 7, the given solution is an acidic in nature. Suppose it shows the values more than 7, it indicates that the given solution or the taken solution is an basic in nature. As well as suppose if it's stagnant on the number 7, that clearly indicates it is not an acid, it is not a base, it is an neutral solution. Let's see importance of an pH. Of course, we require pH in everything. Like example, in our body also requires an pH. Our body have the pH between 7 to 7.8 and soil contains 6 to 6.8. That is very suitable for any plants or the trees to grow very healthy. And even our tooth also forms some decays. It is because of an acid formation by the bacteria when the pH is less than 5.5. It indicates that whenever the bacteria produce an acid that reacts with an calcium which is present in our tooth and it forms the corrosion. Now let's see what happens when acid and the base reacts with each other. As we know that whenever the acid and the base reacts with each other, it forms a salt, right? Let me give an example for that. When we take an ammonia in one hand and chlorine in another hand, when I combine it forms an ammonium chloride. This is how the salt is going to form. This salt can be of three types. One is acidic salt, basic salt and neutral salt. Acidic salt is nothing but whenever the strong acid and a weak base is combined, it forms a strong acid. Whenever the strong base and weak acid combines, it forms a strong base. Whenever the strong acid and strong base combines, it forms a neutral salt. Okay, now we'll see NaCl. NaCl is commonly called as an common salt. Without this salt, we cannot have any food, right? And this salt is act as an raw material to prepare many salts like sodium hydroxide, bleaching powder, washing powder, baking soda and many more things. Sodium hydroxide. When we pass the electric current into an NaCl solution, which is commonly called as an brine solution, the sodium hydroxide is formed. In this, the NaCl will decompose into form sodium hydroxide. Alright, so NaCl, when it is dissolved in water, it forms sodium hydroxide, chlorine and hydrogen. Have you ever felt chlorine in drinking water? Yes, it is because of the bleaching powder. How do we get this bleaching powder? While the formation of an sodium hydroxide, I told you that there is a formation of an chlorine. When I pass this chlorine into a test tube and I add a slaked lime to that, it produces a new beautiful salt called as an bleaching powder. Where do we use this bleaching powder? We use this bleaching powder in wood industry, paper industry, cotton industries, and mainly it is used to clean the water. It is mainly used to kill the microorganisms or the germs which is present in the soil. That's why we feel chlorine in the drinking water. Suppose I am having an pakoda. Have you ever had? Yes. How it seems to be? It seems to be so crispy, right? How does it form? Because of addition of an baking soda. How does this baking soda is formed? The next salt is about how to make an baking soda, and this is very important in our kitchen, right? So the baking soda is formed when the NaCl, sodium chloride, is dissolved in water along with the ammonia and carbon dioxide. It forms an baking soda along with the ammonium chloride. Where do we use this? Yes, of course, I told you that already. We use mainly in the kitchen. Yes, of course, it is used to make any any food crispy, as well as which is used to make an fire extinguisher. Do you know why our dress seems to be so clean? Yes, it is because of the washing soda. How do we get this washing soda? The baking salt, what we got previously, when it is heated, it produces an sodium hydrogen carbonate. When that is converted into crystallization, that forms the washing soda. Why we need this washing soda? Definitely it is very essential. It is majorly used in soap, glass and many industries, and majorly it is used to remove the permanent hardness of an water crystallization. This is nothing but the amount of water present in a one formula unit of an salt is called as an water crystallization. By this method, we get an very important substances and very essential substances called as an gypsum. When the gypsum is heated at 373 Kelvin, the water molecules which is present in the gypsum will be completely removed, and it form a new substances called as an calcium sulfate hemihydrate. This is commonly called as an plaster of Paris. We know that plaster of Paris is mainly used to support the fractured bones in a right position. Here ends our chapter, acid, base and salt. Hope it was very interesting. We'll see in the next video. Thank you.